Hello, hello. Welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month we're looking at political thought, making this week's book The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion by Jonathan Haidt. His name is pronounced Haidt, I found out. The accompanying cocktail is a righteous old-fashioned, which is 1 sugar cube, 2 dashes of Angostura Bitters, an orange peel, and 12 ounces of Rye Beer. So let's do this. Now, did not get sugar cubes. I just Googled it and it's, 1 sugar cube is a teaspoon of sugar. So I'm just going to use a teaspoon of sugar. Didn't want to buy a whole box of cubes for one. What is this book about? Jonathan Haidt is a psychologist who studies the psychology of morality. At least that's what he was studying when he wrote this book. I don't know if that's still what he studies. 2 dashes. 2 heavy dashes. In this book, he breaks down the pillars of morality, what it is to be moral, and then how he obtained and breaks down the data for morals and political philosophies. And why does that separate us? Right? What happened? Why do good people who should find means by which to get along argue and bicker so bitterly about politics and religion? Well, that's all included in here. I'm going to stab myself. I just know it. I'm going to stab myself with this. Don't drop it on the floor, because then you got to do this again and possibly stab yourself again. Now we're going to muddle, because we're going to get some of those orange juices out of here. Make a slurry down there. There we go. Why not? We'll call that good. So, for ease of reference, I'm going to use the language he uses, and he even spells out the language he uses, which is, he uses liberal conservative language that we all know and love, right? So liberal meaning progressive. He's going with the American definition of liberal, not the European. The European one, he points out, is more close to modern libertarians here in America. He does point out that libertarian ideals are classically liberal, even, God's bless him, calling libertarians the, quote, direct descendants of 17th and 18th century Enlightenment philosophers. Which I like that. I appreciates the recognition. So that wasn't a quote, but ad-libbing here. So he acknowledges the difference between liberal and libertarians, but mostly this book is looking at the extremes of left-right ideologies. I poured that too fast. I shouldn't have that much foam in there, that much head. Oh well. The first part of this book, he takes us a bit through his history and how this came to be his focus, right? Ultimately leading up to the analogy that he has found most useful, which is that people are like riders on elephants, right? Everyone, no matter how logical and reasoning and free-thinking you think you are, is actually led by the elephant, right? And seriously, it's not like a human is actually able to make that much of a difference without extreme cruelty to the elephant. So everyone is led by the elephant, aka intuition. All right, your intuition is going to lead you down the path one way or the other. And then the person riding the elephant justifies why they feel the way they do, which can sway the intuition. In this case, in this metaphor, the rider is reason. So your intuition is led by, or you're led by your intuition, but reason can have some sway over intuition. Now, he backs up these assertions with psychological studies he's done to show how he reaches this conclusion. He includes a couple of questions that he asked in his surveys, my favorite one of which was, and this is a direct quote, "A man goes to the supermarket once a week and buys a chicken, but before cooking the chicken, he has sexual intercourse with it. Then he cooks it and eats it. Has he done something wrong?" Now, for the purposes of this question, don't add details, all right? Don't take it out of context. Literally, that's the question. Assume that no one else is going to be eating the chicken. The chicken is already dead when he buys it, and no one knows about this weird necrophiliac thing that he has going on for, dead chickens. It's just a man fucking a dead chicken that he fully intends to cook and eat afterwards. A little pre-seasoning, if you will. Now's a good time to try the cocktail. It's not too shabby. I mean, clearly the beer is going to be the prevalent flavor profile, right? I mean, that's 12 ounces of beer, essentially. But it's got a little, you could taste the orange flavoring, and the sugar makes it just slightly a bit sweeter than the normal bitterness you would expect in a rye beer. Ryes tend to be very dark anyways. Not too bad. So, has he done anything morally wrong? All right, the chicken's already dead, so he's not hurting the chicken. No one else is eating it, so nobody else is going to be contaminated by this. It's just this weird little fetish that he has. Virtually everyone who's asked that question, their initial visceral reaction is, what the fuck? However, the weirder you were, and this is an acronym meaning Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and from a democratic nation, the more likely you were when the interrogator pushed back on that visceral, yeah, that's gross, you were more likely to start finding reasons why he actually didn't do anything wrong. All right. I mean, again, it's a man by himself practicing his own fetish that hurts nobody else. That's the writer, aka reason, asserting a little bit of control over the intuition. The elephant in the room, the chicken fucker. And this sort of led Haidt down a rabbit hole of decades of research and studying of what defines morality across cultures. My God. Things that are perfectly normal in Western cultures, like, this is the example he gives from the book, a widowed woman eating fish 3 times a week. They're going to get you looked at like a moral failure in places like India, because culturally in India, fish is seen as a hot food, which does not indicate the temperature at which the fish was cooked, but rather that a food is going to raise your libido. And if you're a widowed woman, you have no business raising your libido in India. Your husband's already dead. So why are you eating fish 3 times a week? Now, that's a cultural thing, but in India, it's also a morality thing. You don't go out seeking others when your spouse has already died, if you're a woman. I have no idea about the men. Now, from here, he goes into, like, I think it's part 2. He introduces the 6 pillars of morality, and they are care, harm, liberty, oppression, fairness, cheating, loyalty, betrayal, authority, subversion, sanctity, degradation. So they're two sides to the same coins, right? So 6 pillars. The chicken fucker one violates the sanctity, degradation pillar. Now, what do each of these pillars mean specifically? So care, harm is protection of the weak. All right. Children and animals tend to be the biggest triggers on this one. Those are the ones that's going to have people freak out of, oh my God, how could you hurt a child? How could you hurt an animal? That's one of my big triggers too. All right. I cannot abide cruelty to animals and cruelty to children. Fair, but it can also extend out to like handicapped or other victims. And we're going to circle back to other victims in a bit. Fairness cheating is transactional relationships where both parties benefit. Is it a fair deal, right? If not, or if one party doesn't reciprocate after a deal has been struck, this pillar gets violated. Loyalty betrayal is cohesive coalitions, that friend group, and when the one friend speaks out where against whatever the group has determined is the norm for that group, you're betraying the loyalty of the group. See a lot of that when you see a lot of that with detransitioners today. If you go on Twitter and you look at anybody who's detransitioned, they are absolutely brutally castigated by people who are still on the in crowd. Let's see, that was loyalty betrayal. Authority subversion is the creation of hierarchies that serve the group, right? Trying to subvert that is a betrayal. Sanctity degradation, the chicken thing is sanctity degradation. What about liberty oppression, right? Well, Haidt didn't discover this one until a bit later. Historically, according to Haidt, dominance hierarchies didn't really become a thing until the agricultural revolution and the domestication of farm animals. Historically, that's what we can prove, all right? That's not to say they actually didn't exist during cavemen. We don't really know because there's not a whole lot of written record to support that. But historically, we can prove that dominance hierarchies became a thing with the advent of the agricultural revolution. The domestication of farm animals, etc., right? Because then we started stockpiling stuff. Basically, we had to be standing still for oppression to really become a thing, is the argument. Regardless of when that particular pillar started, it's very much a pillar in the 21st century, and to absolutely no one's surprise, just about the only one that libertarians care about. And I had to laugh when he got to that breakdown in the book. I'm like, it's probably about accurate. Big ass pillar for liberty and oppression, right? What does all this mean? Well, the right actually has a solid advantage over the left. The left doesn't like to hear this. They never like to hear this, but he spells it out, right? Basically, the left only really cares about care, harm, and liberty oppression with a slight uptick in caring about fairness and cheating. So basically, they have a shaky three-legged table of morality. All right. Not all the tables are equally, not all the table legs are equally thick, so it's really rickety, but it does have three legs. Kind of easy to push over the right with only three legs, especially when you compare it to the right, which cares about all six more or less equally, giving them a much sturdier moral table for everyone to sit at. The left most definitely does not like to hear that anything good could come out of the right. And because the right doesn't care about things about like the care, harm, liberty, oppression to the same depth that the left does, the left tends to think they don't care at all. No, they do care. They care slightly differently. They don't care the same way you do. We all know that people don't like to hear that other people might have a different life experience. And you got the libertarians out there riding one of those weird old-timey bicycles with the really large front wheel made up of liberty, oppression, and the smaller back wheels made up of fairness, cheating. I mean, it's like, no wonder we can't win in politics. Very few people can ride that bicycle successfully, and most are completely unwilling to even try. The six-legged table has allowed the right to more or less solve the social science's biggest problem, which is the free rider. What is the free rider? So glad you asked. The free rider is Bernie Sanders. Okay, that's only sort of true. Allow me to elucidate here. The free rider problem occurs when people benefit from a resource, but don't pay for them in any way, shape, or form. And I know the lefts are going to sit there and scream, "Oh, you mean like libertarians not wanting to pay for roads?" Well, technically, we do pay for roads. It's called tax on gasoline. That's supposed to pay for the roads. All right. And I'm fine with reducing the tax for gasoline. I'm fine with letting the roads become toll roads if they're privately owned. I really resent an incredibly inept government creating toll roads, though, because they don't do anything good with it. Going way off topic on the roads here. Where was I? Old-timey bicycle. Oh, yeah, free rider problem. Bernie Sanders. He was kicked out of a commune once, and I will throw up the Grok citation here, because I did ask. I'm like, is that true? I saw it, and I was like, let's make sure that's true before I, this. He wasn't technically a member of the commune. He was visiting the commune, but even visitors are expected to help when you're there. And he didn't. He didn't do any work for 3 days. People would get distracted because he would try and pull them into political discourse, and the only way to get them out of this Bernie suckhole was to pull them away and to do something else. So he was asked to leave after 3 days for not contributing anything to the commune. He did no work in exchange for the food and shelter he received in those 3 days. Seemed to feel that gracing them with the benefit of his wisdom was enough. The commune disagreed and asked him to leave, and he has been a national problem ever since. Thank you very much, Vermont. Bernie Sanders' entire career is a strong argument for the revocation of the 17th Amendment. Let the states go back to each state legislature picks their own senators and sends them, because then we wouldn't have to pay for, 50 years of Bernie Sanders bullshit. Anyways, off of that topic, the right doesn't play that game. The free riders problem was solved with robust property rights. All right. That takes care of it right there. If you have to take care of yourself, if we really push that personal responsibility, the free rider problem tends to go away when you really push personal responsibility. Now, this book was written in 2012, and he says straight up that he was and has been left of center. I have no idea if he still is. It's completely irrelevant, all right? I don't actually pick books based off of the political affiliations of the author. I pick them on, is this going to be an interesting read, and what can I learn from it? And sometimes I do, yes, denigrate them if they're inserting their political beliefs and it's not relevant to the topic at hand. See my review of Whack Job a few months ago, right? His political beliefs were highly relevant because his beliefs led him down this road and led him to say, here's what the left is missing, relevant to the story. So I'm not going to denigrate him for that. He included it for good reason. His good reason being he was left of center during the writing of this book. I have no idea if he still is. He even wrote articles to support John Kerry during the 2004 election season, probably the 2008 election season, to help Barack Obama. Fine. I kind of think his articles had more of an impact on the left than he may have initially believed in the intervening 14 years since publication. See, he wrote this book trying to foster greater understanding between the left-right dichotomy in modern American politics. But reading it now and seeing the state of the modern political discourse here in America, I feel like anyone on the left who read this book, rather than reading it and going, okay, all right, the man has some points. And, choosing to build a stronger table that might appeal to more voters, maybe adding a fourth leg to make that table a little more stable. They just kind of doubled down on the care-harm spectrum and expanded on what it was to be a victim. Everybody's a victim these days. Here in the 21st century, everybody's a victim, right? Victim poker is a great game to play, and everyone's a victim, so how strong is your hand for victim poker? I think that's why trans activism, I had this conversation with my parents last weekend, because they were trying to figure out why there are so many freaking trans men around, right? I think because all these white men were told for a decade plus that white men are the source of everything that's wrong with this world, so they just switch sides. And I don't mean to switch sides by going Republican. I mean, they just switch genders. They're like, oh, well, if I'm a white woman, I'm a trans woman, then now I'm the victim. And I can play the victim card on the care harm pillar without retribution or pushback from any of the leftist ideologues. Rather than acknowledging just how far we have come in the last 250 years since America declared independence, the left continues to push that liberty, oppression, fairness, cheating pillars, right? These two pillars are pushing them. Because they've decided that the three-legged, shaky-ass table is better than acknowledging that maybe the right may be onto something when they say that personal responsibility is important, that you have to take charge of yourself occasionally. Maybe the right is onto something when they say placing men in women's prisons based on self-identity is not actually fair to the women who are in those prisons and then subsequently raped by the trans man, or allowing men into women's sports, betrays women's sports. Maybe they're onto something there, but that's not fair to the victim class. On the other hand, the right, and he points this out, and I agree with him, could really stand to benefit from cutting back on corporate power. I mean, people always bitch about capitalism. Here's the thing. We don't have capitalism in this country. We don't have free markets in this country. We have crony corporatism, backed up by a highly corrupt Congress on both sides of the table. This is not a left-right thing. It's not like everybody on the left is corrupt or everybody on the right is corrupt. They are all corrupt as fuck, except for Thomas Massey, Sainted Thomas Massey. I'm going to see if I can find a picture of him as a saint and throw it up there. Who everybody hates because he refuses to play that game. God bless him. Corporate power. Could use to cut back on corporate power. I mean, the left may not actually do anything about corporate corruption. They're fully complicit. I mean, look at all the big name donors that donate to the left, right? I mean, Google, Facebook, Twitter, prior to Elon Musk taking over, all the big tech companies are massive left supporters, and that's where a lot of us get our news these days, are tech companies, right? But it's a valid talking point. We got to cut back that power, because, man, are we heading down to a cyberpunk dystopia. I'm rather looking forward to it. I'm just a little disappointed at how old I'm going to be when it gets here. I will say this book is why I read. It was very good. This book is why I read. It's helps me to learn things about myself. All right. I would still say I'm a libertarian. I'm still pedaling that weird ass bicycle down the road with my fellow libertarian freaks, right? I've got the big ass wheel in front of me, real concerned about individual freedoms. But I'm wearing a couple of training wheels on it, maybe pulling a small cart behind me. Because as he explained in the book, right, what he means by liberals are fierce individualists. And he says that liberals are fierce individualists. They care very much about the individual person. Okay. Conservatives care more about the group and team effort. And at first I kind of bristle at that. I'm like, of course I'm an individualist. The smallest minority on earth and most easily oppressed is the individual. Liberty, oppression, big ass wheel right in front of me. I'm looking at it as I'm trying to maintain my balance on this bicycle, right? Liberty, oppression, individual, easy to suppress. Is he calling me one of the weird liberals because, I care about individualism? But then I started to think about what he said, about what he wrote, right? It started to penetrate my vacation alcohol-induced haze. I started thinking about one of my coworkers, who I know is liberal. Came up once during a lunch meeting. We kind of rapidly steered the topic elsewhere because none of us wanted to talk politics, but I know she's a liberal, and I'm going to call her Annie for ease of storytelling because it's easier than saying coworker. Get everybody confused. So Annie, right? Annie's not really a team player. Not even a little bit. I mean, I dropped everything I had scheduled at home to go TDY like that for 3 weeks I had a week's notice to get everything packed and ready to go because my colleague in Vegas, we're going to call her Betty because, again, easier than coworker ABC, right? Betty went on maternity leave and they were shorthanded. They needed me in Vegas to cover because she's got a baby on the way. She's got to be with her new baby. Totally fair. I get it, man. And to be fair, I've known for months that this was going to happen because she told me way back in November, oh my God, by the way, I'm pregnant. Congratulations. Awesome. Good for you. And I knew as soon as she said, I'm like, okay, I'm on standby. She goes on maternity leave. I'm going to Vegas. Done and done. Team player right here. Team Katrina. Good on me, right? So she goes on maternity leave. I'm in Vegas for 3 weeks. And yet, in the, I think, 3 or 4 years that Annie has worked for our company, I don't think she's ever done a TDY. Maybe 2 or 3 days, but not an extended 2 or 3 week TDY. I've gone on like 4 or 5 TDYs since she started. My other colleague in Northern Nevada, let's call her Cindy, also right of center, has also gone on like 3 or 4 TDYs that I know of. She's also going to Vegas to help while Betty is out on maternity leave. We're flying in an investigator from like Montana or some shit to help in Vegas. Why the fuck isn't Annie going to Vegas to help out? So there's one of my there's my back tire, the fairness cheating one, right? I feel a little cheated out of time with my husband because Annie doesn't want to pull her load. But, one of those training wheels I have is going to be that authority subversion one. I respect my boss. So when he called and said, hey, Betty's going on maternity leave, can you go to Vegas? I said, absolutely, when do you need me there? And he said, can you go on Monday? And I said, yes, I can. Because I respect my boss. And I'm a team player. All right, Betty's having a baby. I can help with that. Like, I can't help with the baby, but I can help ease her mind about work, right? The other training wheel is going to be the Sankrity degradation pillar. I mean, the small caboose is probably care and harm. My triggers are damage to animals and children. I'm a big proponent of wood chippers for the pedophiles. Yeah, I genuinely don't care, though. Okay, I'm going to say the other training wheel is the care harm. And the small pillar being pulled behind me is Sankrity degradation. I don't care if you're gay or straight. Genuinely don't. But please, don't fuck the chicken. I mean, come on. Find a better hobby, man. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Bye.